Hello, this is Jennifer, and I have right here my folder portfolio from Classroom Management. And I'm just going to explain to you some parts of my folder that I think are really important and really great for me to know in a future classroom. And I really like the layout of this folder, and I want to tell you why. So let me start out by the front page. So this is, I don't know if you can really see it, but these are, maybe backwards too. Anyway, these are some words that I pulled out from my philosophy paper. And I think that they're really important to know because it says the biggest words are students, will, and classroom. And that's kind of like the overall theme that I have for my folder is it's all about the students who will succeed in the classroom. It's not, oh yeah, they may succeed in my classroom. Oh yeah, they could possibly succeed. No, they will. They will succeed because of good classroom management. And also classroom's big because that's also my focus. So I'm going to start with the first page. And this is my philosophy. And the philosopher that I feel like I most identify with is Cantor and Cantor. And I wrote here high control, but I thought about it more because Cantor and Cantor is high control, but I thought about it more and I feel like I am more of a high medium control. And I will explain why in this philosophy. So Cantor and Cantor believe in rules, and they believe that rules, the teachers should be firm, but not authoritative, which means that the classroom isn't set up basically like as a dictatorship, if that makes sense. The teacher should know their role, the student should know their role, but the teacher uses positive reinforcement throughout the day to teach the students. And I feel like it gives the students their own responsibility, and that if they follow the rules, then they themselves can take the responsibility for either following them or not following them. So some teacher roles: the teacher selects student behavior, the teacher enforces the rules and uses positive behavior or positive reinforcement, and then the students work for the rewards. They work for the rewards and they don't question their authorities. And again, this goes back to the research done on teachers should know their role, the students should know their role. But down here I put a little quote that says, even though they know both of these roles, the teacher and the student should both have healthy relationships. And I noticed this throughout my practicum. I saw the teacher's role, the student's roles, and they both knew their roles, but yet they still had a really healthy relationship. And that's the whole premise of what I believe is all about a healthy relationship. On this page talks about democratic classrooms. Again, this relates to Cantor and Cantor because I believe a classroom should be democratic, but not like overbearing. So I'm just going to share with you my philosophy statement for this, just so you can kind of get it tied back together. So basically it says a democratic classroom is when students are regularly involved in a classroom, making processes within a classroom. And I want to provide a classroom where students are constantly giving their ideas and their suggestions for a classroom, and that they feel like that they're part of a community. And this is all about a democratic classroom. It talks about class jobs, class environment. Why are students there? Like, why do they have the jobs that they do? Why are they doing what they're doing? Why are students in school? And so this is what my little handout is all about. And I have little pictures, little statements about class jobs, self-governing beliefs, things like that. So that's my democratic classrooms. Moving on, if I can get my folder, I'm going to talk about motivation for a little bit. And motivation, when I did my motivation paper, I focused on how motivation is a really important thing. And my husband and I talk about this a lot, about motivation, what motivates people to do something. And based on research and based on what philosophers have said, there are two things that people are motivated by. There's intrinsic and extrinsic rewards, it's hard to say, and intrinsic rewards. And extrinsic, I can't even say it, are reward systems, grades, evaluations. What are the outside factors that motivate somebody? And the intrinsic rewards, which is a student's own interest and curiosity that motivates them to do something. And so the whole thing is about how do we move students from extrinsic beliefs to intrinsic? Like, how can we stop making it so we are giving them things that outside forces that help them stay motivated, and how can we turn that into, how can we make them believe that they can do it? How can we motivate them internally? So I think to help them get there is to use incentives. I feel like incentives are a really great motivator. That goes along with positive reinforcement of Cantor and Cantor. So expressing the importance of success, increasing motivation, making tasks enjoyable, making things engaging helps with the students. Really increases the motivation, and these things can help students realize their inner motivation, which I think is important. Speaking of motivation, wow, this is really big. I have a little section on rules, and I feel like, along with Cantor and Cantor, rules should be enforced, and students should know what these rules are. So I feel like having rules set up, you can't really see it, but having rules set up within the classroom and having them posted where students can see them is really vital. And one rule that I just want to share with you says, be respectful to the teacher, peers, and yourself. And I think that's really important because the student knows the teacher's place, they know their place, and they know the reasons why their students are there, or their peers are there. So rules are important. Consequences, Cantor and Cantor describes that consequences are important for rules. They help students know what the rules are, what their place is. Then over here I have prevention strategies to ensure positive relationships. I feel like to ensure positive relationships, because that's another big part of Cantor and Cantor, is positive reinforcement, staying positive. One thing I feel like is to get to know each child's name. There is power in a name, and that is research-based anywhere you go online. When somebody knows your name, they have a greater connection to you. And so when a teacher knows a student's name and gets to know them really well, it can boost that child's confidence way up. Move on to interventions really quick. We talked about in class situational assistance, mild responses, and moderate responses. How can we keep management in the classroom? How can we keep that control? One thing that I really like is teacher proximity. That's a really big thing, and that goes underneath situational assistance. Or is it? Yeah. It goes underneath mild responses, and that is a way for teachers to continue their teaching without being really disruptive. And if a child is talking during instruction and a teacher just goes up and stands right next to them, they get right to work. And I saw this in practicum a lot. I used this one time. I was teaching a lesson and these little boys were talking, and I didn't say anything. I just went right over to them and stood right there, and I continued to teach, and my presence made them think and get back to work. So this really works, teacher proximity, and that's underneath mild responses. Situational assistance helps because it does not interrupt teaching at all. And if a child's being disruptive with an object, you can just go take it away, continue teaching. So these intervention strategies are important. And again, bullying. Bullying is something that we talked a lot about in practicum. I think it's important to address and to teach the roles of bullying in a classroom and make students aware. One last thing I want to share with you before I am done is my classroom map. Let's see if I can turn it so you can see it. This is loosely based on my own teacher's classroom setup. And one thing that I really liked is she had all the desks in the middle. She had a spot back here. I don't know if you can see it. A spot back here where she could have reading groups. And she had a spot up here right in front of the whiteboard where whole group instruction could take place, like a little reading rug. And I feel like this classroom setup helps kids to not feel so enclosed in a space. They can feel more open. They're at tables because research says that when you are at a table and with a group, you're able to work well with your peers. And this teacher center works really well because you're able to pull kids back in a reading group and making them feel important with your one-on-one instruction. So this is my classroom setup, my classroom map. These are just some of my papers, some important things that I've learned throughout this class. And this whole portfolio is a great resource for me to use in my next practicum, because I did my first practicum this semester. In my next practicum, I could totally use this, and even in my teaching efforts. So thank you for listening to my portfolio, and hope you have a great day.